Welcome to the DNA show.
DNA? Dude, are we doing a science show?
No, D is for Dennis.
Oh, A is for Andy.
And N is for and?
Oh, man, nerds.
Oh, yeah.
We're nerds, dude.
Yeah. Well, good. Then we can talk about comics and movies and pop culture and sports.
Sports and nerds. Yeah, we're going to make that work.
All right, let's roll.
Heidi ho, welcome back to the Dennis and Andy show. Once again, I'm Andy with my buddy.
And this is Dennis. Welcome back again.
Oh yeah. That takes you back, doesn't it, Dennis?
I actually remember listening to this when it came out.
Takes you back to 1982. The Tiger was blowing up the Billboard Top 100. Actually, I believe it was number 2. Point is, we're reliving the past. We are going into the past, and we're going to talk about a classic.
It is indeed.
Classic comic book story where the two titans in publishing, Marvel and DC Comics, came together with their two ultimate teams, the Uncanny X-Men and the New Teen Titans, teamed up in this nice oversized one-shot on what they call Baxter paper. So for those not in the know, back in the 80s, 70s, 60s, all comic books were printed on newsprint, but this was printed on what they call Baxter paper, which was a higher quality paper stock. It showed off the colors more. It was more vibrant. The paper was a little bit heavier. So they went balls to the wall. And the price even back then. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Can you remember what it cost? Hazard a guess?
A couple of bucks. Because I think I'm going to say $2.
Average comics were 60 cents back then. This bad boy was $2.
It was $2.
I want my $2.
Movie reference.
That's right. You got it. Well, what's the movie?
Is it Dead or Alive? Wanted? No.
Yeah. Well, John Cusack. Right?
Yeah, it's John Cusack.
Yeah,
he was the paper boy.
Yeah.
Dead or Alive.
It is Dead or Alive. Yeah. There you look at that.
Wow. Trying to trick me.
So we thought we would basically throw down our adult 2 cents on this. Now, I can say as a kid when it came out, I do remember getting it. And I have a couple copies of it, and I still have the original copy I bought back then, but I also have another one. Just, the original copy is not like mint or anything. I think it's just more of this was the one I bought then. I'm going to keep it bagged and boarded. And it's not like a book that's really pricey, so when I saw another one cheap, I was like, you know what, I'll get another one. Then I never have to open the one I actually bought when I was 12 or 13. Yep. Actually, I was 12 because Dennis and I are the same age. But our birthdays are later in the year, so even though technically I would have been 13 when this came out, I was a ripe 12.
Yep, and I was too. And I still remember going in to my comic book store in my hometown, and it was also an arcade. And I would always go in there, and I always bought my X-Men every week. And all of a sudden, they were like, "Oh, do we got something for you? Hope you brought your wallet." And I was like, "Well, yeah, what do you got?" Oh, had to. It was an absolute must-buy.
And the thing is, back then, there was no internet. There was no previews catalog. So this thing just came out.
Right.
You didn't get that 3 months or 6 months heads up like, hey, guess what the companies are doing?
Yeah.
So it was really a nice surprise just walking in and seeing the two huge companies team up. And they got they pulled out all the stops for the creative team. Chris Claremont, guy that was writing X-Men at the time.
Exactly, which was a seller for me instant. Well, just having the X-Men was a seller.
Oh, yeah.
But when I found it was Chris Claremont, hands down.
Oh, yeah. And then art was Walter Simonson, who, he wasn't at the apex, of his career yet. It was 1982. He started in the 70s. So he definitely had some miles on him and definitely had a name for himself. But I mean, this is before Thor.
I was just going to say, this predates Thor.
Yeah, this predates Thor, which is where he really took off. And then Fantastic Four and X Factor. So Walt Simonson, top premier inker at the time, Terry Austin, who inked John Byrne on the X-Men.
Yeah.
The letterer from the X-Men, Tom Orzechowski, came over to work on it. And then colorist extraordinaire, Glennis Wine. So just top talent all the way through. So for me, I got it more from I was a huge X-Men fan. Wasn't really reading Teen Titans, knew who they were. But I'm an art guy, even back then. And I knew who Walt Simonson was and Terry Austin was, and just seeing these two pair up. Because Terry's always had this super slick ink line, and him working over Walt, who Walt's pencils are anything but like really tight. They definitely need an inker, and it just melded together into this fantastic team. It has a beautiful wraparound cover with the X-Men and Teen Titans all running at the reader, with big vignettes in the background of the bad guys, which on the back cover is Darkseid, and of course on the front cover, Dark Phoenix.
My favorite.
And this is after she died. So right there it just hooked you, because you're like, what?
Yep. She can't be back.
She can't
What's
be
going
back.
on? Is this a what if? It can't be a what if. What's going on?
So I blather on, and I'll talk more about the art. Dennis, fill us in a little bit on the story.
Well, what I thought was interesting, because it was actually distributed by the Marvel Entertainment Group at the time, but it was a collaborative work.
Yeah.
But you could tell by the talent, as you were reading off, it was more driven by Marvel.
Right. It was a more Marvel-produced book.
Right.
Yeah.
But with that being said, anything Dark Phoenix, I can still remember just tearing into it. What was interesting, we reread this.
Yeah.
And immediately I'm like, wow, I don't remember that story nearly as well as I thought. So the first thing that gets me is you get introduced to the X-Men and the Teen Titans respectively. And you get, for if you were a new reader or you had only read either X-Men or Teen Titans, they did a nice job of explaining, here's who the characters are, here's what their abilities are. But the cool thing that they did in this book right out of the get-go is the X-Men are from northern New York.
Yeah, upstate
New York.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Teen Titans were also set in
New York.
And they were like, oh,
Titans Towers in the Bay or Harbor.
well, that's got to have something to do with those X-Men. Well, I heard that they were like outlaws. We should, we will have to find out who they are. And so what's interesting is you've got two universes, and instead of, like in the later crossovers, how they would cross into one universe, the DC universe or the Marvel, these were both set in the same identical world. So it's like an Elseworld or a what if, because they didn't.
Well, it's cool because they didn't mention other names, but since they are both set in New York in this shared world, and there wasn't some event that cast the X-Men over to DC or DC Teen Titans over to Marvel, you could very well theorize that Spider-Man's swinging around New York and Superman somewhere in Metropolis. And so I thought that was cool. And like you said, Claremont did a fantastic job of, if you've never read an X-Men book or a Teen Titans book, and this was your first exposure to both teams, he did a great introduction of each character's power set. I mean, he starts off with the X-Men in the Danger Room.
Right.
And it's not the whole team. It's Colossus, Nightcrawler, and Wolverine working out in the Danger Room. But there, he goes through their powers.
Right. Then Kitty shows up and,
Kitty phases in and says it's dinner time.
Yep.
Which, that's nice of her. She's the youngest one in the group. It's like, get the cooking.
Yeah.
You're the young kid in the group.
Yeah, it shows its age, but again, Claremont, and being an X-Men fan, you can always pick up a book from like his run, and then even every couple issues, you get introduced to the characters. So he always set up the X-Men books where you could pick up a book at any time and not be totally lost. You could at least know who the characters were and be introduced to their powers. He did the same thing in this. And then they switch over to the New Titans because all of a sudden they have the premonition. And, and she's like, oh no, it's pure evil coming.
Raven.
And
Yeah.
And then you get introduced to the team, and he does the same thing over there, and they wind up calling an emergency team because she's got this premonition of pure evil that could, destroy the entire Earth. And they call everybody in, and everybody makes it back depending on what they were doing, except for Robin,
who was getting his ass handed to him
by the Terminator.
By Deathstroke, the Terminator, who left him beaten to... I won't say beaten to a pulp, but he left him beaten in an alleyway.
Unconscious.
Yeah. But, just to touch on what you said about how Chris does such a fantastic job of introducing everybody and how he would even do that in, almost everything he wrote. And I think that has a lot to do with Stan Lee's tutelage, because Stan Lee's point of view was always... Whatever issue of a comic you're writing, think of it that whoever picks it up, this could be their first issue of X-Men or first issue of the Fantastic Four. So you don't want to go into it, even if it's issue 40 of, X-Men, and just assume that people have read the previous 39 issues and not introduce the characters. So, right. And it doesn't have to be like a slap in the face introduction. It can literally be, say page 1 of a book. Cyclops is, it could be something mundane. He's in a car driving somewhere with Storm, and their dialogue, Storm calls him Scott.
Yep.
And maybe then refers to him as Cyclops for some reason. And he refers to her as Aurora, her name. And it's ways with the dialogue to introduce the characters. So if it is the first time you're picking up this book, you're not left in the dark.
Right. And it's funny you say that, because I think back to when I picked up one of my earliest issues of Fantastic Four was, if you think back and you're like, well, there's so many issues. Well, I remembered Torgo. It was the thing in Torgo, and it was like an old gangster. It was the gangster storyline, and he had the big collar, and he didn't have his powers, and he had to fight Torgo in the ring. And you open that up, and you could go, oh, I remember everything. Well, that's them and them. Oh, that's kind of a cool story. I remember picking up my first Fantastic Four like that.
Yeah. And, getting back to the art, Walt Simonson's art is very big. It's very bold. It's in your face. He's a big Kirby fan, and you can see it in the figure work and his layouts. And just, there's a splash page in the book where it introduces Dark Phoenix, and Darkseid's in the foreground, basically, with his hand out gesturing towards her, and she's this grateful figure saying, "Who summons Dark Phoenix?" And he's like, "I, Darkseid." And
the wording, even in the word bubbles, it's that really dark font, and they basically used their fonts that they used from theirs, which are very similar to one another. Big, ominous, huge fonts, and you could tell they just from that page they were the two powerhouses in those universes.
Yeah, and then there's because I just passed it because the book's right in front of us. There's a double-page spread of the source wall. And, I mean, it just spews Jack Kirby, and you can see Walt's love for Jack Kirby in the art. It was fun. Like Dennis said, we had to, we didn't have to, but to do our due diligence for the podcast, we reread the book. And, Dennis was like, man, I'm having a hard time finding mine. So, it was kind of cute. I went to Dennis's house with my copy, and we cuddled on the sofa and, would take turns reading balloons and stuff. So, yeah, it was fun. His wife thought we were weird, but, I want to have that 12-year-old experience again.
It's funny because all my stuff's alphanumeric, and it should be right where it was. And I was like, it's not there. Well, maybe I put it under Teen Titans. Now I would have put it under my X-Men stuff. Nope, not there. It's there, but I just couldn't find it. And I looked for a couple of hours. So I finally gave up and just had to borrow Andy's.
Well, the funny thing is, I was the same way. When I was looking for mine, I was like, well, it's got to be under X-Men. Yeah. Flipping, and it's not there. And I'm like, Teen Titans? That doesn't make sense. Flipping, not there. So I go back, and then I've got a ton of my X-Men stuff just under Uncanny X-Men because
Yep.
I'm like, I'm not separating with the U and the X. And
I do.
It was there. So that's where I found mine. But, yeah, so anyhow, getting back to the story. So the basic gist is Darkseid wants to turn Earth into a second apocalypse.
Yes.
And that's why he needs her power and basically tries to resurrect her. And the way he does it is basically there's energy signatures throughout the world of where she's been.
Yep.
And he basically goes to those different areas to try to amass the energy left over and almost compile it to resurrect her.
Right. He has some dialogue in here that I just thought was really interesting, especially with using Phoenix as a character. So he's like, I am Darkseid, Lord of Apocalypse, eternal foe of the Lords of Light. And as we all know, Dark Phoenix isn't light.
Right.
But Phoenix was.
Right.
She was always considered the beacon of light. Who reside on New Genesis, I propose to see a second apocalypse born. Basically, they've got to destroy the Earth, tap into the core, and which will come up on all the continents, and that will create another apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and again, that whole theory behind the two characters and the background for what he is, the foe of the eternal light, and then to have Phoenix, who was basically like light, then she gets corrupted and becomes the Dark Phoenix, so she is the antithesis of it. So it's just a really interesting pairing that's what they came up with for the storyline.
So then he gets, once Dark Phoenix is resurrected, Darkseid and Phoenix take off through a boom tube with the parademons and just leave the Titans and the X-Men, who were all basically subdued. I won't tell you how, you'll have to read the book. And just leaves them on like some planet somewhere. And then they're
stranded.
Yeah, they're just stranded on this planet that it's funny because it has an atmosphere. Obviously it has an atmosphere because they can breathe, but when you're looking at the art, you see moons in the background and shooting stars and just deep space. Like there's no sky.
Nope.
So you're like, how's there an atmosphere? Because if there was an atmosphere to breathe, wouldn't there be some type of blue sky and not just stars in the background?
Not in 1982.
That's right. But once again, you get a treat of this great splash page drawn by Walt and Terry Austin of the Titans on the left-hand side and the X-Men on the right-hand side, and they're shaking hands. Cyclops and Robin, the two leaders, are shaking hands, and Storm and Starfire are shaking hands, and there's thought bubbles of what some of the other team leader or other members of the team think of the other team.
And the youngsters, Chameleon. Changeling
and Kitty
Pryde. They're like the two young teenagers, like, ooh, he's kind of cute.
Yeah,
ooh.
and then, Raven and Wolverine are staring each other down, and Wolverine's like, I spooked the bird lady.
And she's like,
why.
Oh, he's evil. He's got a temper.
So they're there, and they have to figure out how to get off that planet, and they basically get retrieve Metron's chair. And Metron's another part of the New Gods and stuff, so a DC character. And I love it. They end up getting off planet and back to New York. And, they basically have to track down Darkseid and Dark Phoenix to prevent the apocalypse from happening. Right. So it's really cool. We're not going to give away the ending. I mean, obviously there's a happy ending, but it's really cool how they work it out. They do fun stuff where Changeling takes the form of a parademon, which is a test form because he can't actually take human form. He can only take animal form. But he figures, well, they're not technically humans. Let me give it a shot. And he's actually able to take the form of a parademon.
But he's green, and it gets noticed.
But he's green. He's all green. And Darkseid's like, where'd the green dude come from? Deathstroke plays into it again, and he fights Wolverine, which is really cool. So you have these battles between, Starfire and Phoenix, or Dark Phoenix. And then, of course, there's an ultimate scene with Cyclops and Dark Phoenix, because that was a whole love interest in the X-Men and stuff. So
yeah, and that really brought back memories to me, and the homage that he pays to Phoenix and what they did in the storyline, going back to the original storyline, they did it justice. And I'll tell you, my original thought when I finished this was like, man, look what could have happened if Marvel and DC could play nice together.
Oh, yeah, totally.
This was such a breath of fresh air. Seeing the two companies work, the storyline, it was entertaining. The art was phenomenal. And as a kid, I remember loving the book.
Oh, yeah.
And even as an adult, it still holds up. There's a few things that you're like, wow, but it still holds up. It's amazing.
It's still one of their best crossovers. And from an art standpoint, it holds the test of time. Because Walt Simonson is still rocking on all cylinders doing Ragnarok. His take on Thor, basically, for IDW. And, he's gotten better, but this stuff is, like, fantastic, especially with, Terry Austin's slick, clean inking. Really just... Terry has a very unique style to his own, so pairing him up with a penciler like Walt, it's a great marriage. And even though the coloring is flat color, because that's what was done back in the day, with it being on that nice Baxter paper, which is a brighter white than newsprint from back then, it just holds up.
It looks great.
It does not need all the bells and whistles. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing it reprinted and then recolored with what can be done with today's technology and coloring, and just with some of the fantastic colors that are out there. But at the same time, like Dennis said, it still holds up. So if you're looking for a fun, entertaining read, get Uncanny X-Men and the New Teen Titans.
And the good news is, at the conventions, you can find this book out there from $5 to $10.
I was going to say, I don't think...
No,
even
they're
near
not very
mint,
expensive.
I don't think it goes over $10.
Right. I was going to say, you can find copies for $5 to $10.
Yeah.
It's a great read, absolutely worth picking up. So I recommend any comic book fan, if you're either Marvel or DC, grab it. It's a great read.
On a CGC scale, I got to give it like a 9.5. I'm not going to go perfect.
No.
Perfect's tough.
No,
but I'll go 9 to 9.5 easy.
See, and I would do a near mint at a 9.6.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it thoroughly. I think I probably enjoyed it a little more as a kid because it was so new and exciting.
Oh yeah.
But even right now, the story, the art, everything held up. 9.6, absolute recommendation.
Sweet. Moving on up. Moving on up.
So we did a little TV watching this week.
We did. Well, Dennis finished some watching. If you remember a few episodes back, I suggested a show called Fortitude, and I burned through the first season. And it's a show that's like 4 or 5 years old now on Amazon Prime. So I burned through the first season, told Dennis to watch it. He watched the first season, and I think that's what we talked about. And I brought up how I was into the second season but not done with it. And now Dennis is actually all done with the second season.
Yep. Finished it off.
Now there is a third season, but it's not available yet on Amazon Prime. I don't know when it's going to be, but it's only 4 episodes because from what I can tell, I think the production company or whatever basically was like, well, let's try and cut a deal with Network or whoever originally aired it. I'm not even sure, because it's not an American production.
It looked like it was going to get canceled. And it left it in, at the end of season 2, when Dennis Quaid showed up, it left it in a spot where they could have probably left it, but they did a smart thing, and they're like, instead of doing an entire season to wrap it up, let's do 4 episodes just to finish up, because there's some important storylines that wind up taking place. And it's smart. So we haven't seen the wrap-up yet, but we did finish both season 1 and 2. And season 1 was the slow burn, if you remember.
Which got faster, but season 2 started at the pace that season 1 left off, I thought.
Right.
Which was a pretty good click.
Yes, and they added the new cast. Dennis Quaid was an absolutely fantastic addition to it. That poor little town of Fortitude up in the Arctic Circle.
Well, so Dennis Quaid's character, he's a crabber. He's a fisherman.
Right.
Basically. And what I thought was really... they did a really good job doing this, but I chuckled at the same time because in the whole first season, which was, 13 episodes, there's, just a recap, Fortitude's a small town. There's only 4 cops. That's it. 4 cops. The sheriff and 3 deputies. Basically. Yep. And the sheriff is, the sheriff's a guy, and then one of the deputies is a guy, and then there's 2 female deputies as well. So Dennis Quaid's character that's introduced in the first episode of season 2 is the dad of one of the female officers. And it just cracks me up because throughout the whole first season, it's not like they go into lots of back detail on the officers or anything, but she never mentions once that she lives with her parents.
Nothing.
Just nothing. You just assume that, this is just some female officer that moved to Fortitude to take a job as a cop.
And I picked up on it too because all of a sudden he was a fisherman, he's on the boat, he gets home and it's daughter. And then as the season keeps going on, you're like, oh, well, when this happened and this happened and this happened, I was there. I'm like, what, you weren't in it? Oh. So technically he was there in all the first season, but you never saw him because he was always in the quote-unquote background, So they did a masterful job of working him in as, I was here when everything happened. So he knew everything that was going on, and he picked up. He was just one of the deputy's father.
They did do from season 1 to season 2, I think it was 9 weeks, sorry. So there's a 9-week gap because the sheriff, they established in the first episode of season 2, episode 1, that they were off looking for him. So they didn't know where he was, and he's been gone for 9 weeks, and they're like, well, there's no way he can be alive out on his own in this, Arctic tundra, basically, for 9 weeks.
Right. Except that he can.
The basic gist of season 1 was these 2 dudes come across a mammoth in the ice. They store the mammoth inside of a big shed, basically, and because the mammoth defrosts, some bugs get out, and
because those bugs survived
because they were frozen. They get out, they infect people. So now there's this infection, and it basically rolls into season 2 that way, where not everybody is affected with the infection. Wow, say that 4 times fast. The same way, because the sheriff is infected, but not affected like other people were.
Right, and if you survive the infection, then you wind up getting, you could call them superpowers. You can regenerate, tissue regeneration.
Yeah.
He winds up diving out into the freezing cold water. And anyway, so it's interesting what they're doing with it. And Dennis Quaid's wife is Michelle Fairley, so another character that they just introduced, and she was there the whole time.
Yep.
And we all know Michelle from Game of Thrones.
Yep.
Everybody loved her as Catelyn Stark. Well, she came over here, and she was the mother who's suffering from a very debilitating disease, and she's just going to wind up stop breathing one day because she's in an advanced form of it.
Yeah.
So they've got some very interesting twists in season 2. The pace definitely picked up from season 1, and the storylines and what happens with the governor. The governor who we love from first season.
Oh yeah.
She's integral in this series, in this season too.
Funny continuity thing. So I'm big on when I watch TVs and movies. I like to make sure things, the continuity's right. And what I mean by that is, I've seen this in a movie before where, for instance, they'll show 2 guys sitting at a table talking, and there might be a can of soda on the table. And then they cut to like a close-up of one of the guys talking, and then they'll pull the camera back out for a medium shot, and the soda's gone. And that's what I mean by continuity, because there's actually somebody on set that is supposed to make sure sets stay the same, clothing stays the same, things like that. Now, if you've never seen me, I'm a bald guy. So I'm not sure if what I'm about to say is accurate or not, but at the end of first season, the actress that plays the governor had short hair. Really short hair. Like you could see her ears, short hair, right?
Yep.
Season 2 opens up. It's only been 9 weeks, and now her hair is like down to her shoulders. And I'm no expert because I can't grow it, but I don't think your hair is growing that fast in 9 weeks. I could be wrong, but that's the anal stuff that I see that just drives me nuts. That's how OCD I can be over things. I got over it by, the end of the first episode. It didn't linger.
But it caught you right away.
It caught me right away. Well, because when the show started, season 2, I just assumed, months have passed. Yeah. Months. And then they throw down the 9-week gauntlet that the dude's been gone for 9 weeks. And I'm like, 9 weeks?
Yep.
If she grows her hair that fast in 9 weeks, the sheriff that's out looking for him that has a beard, his beard should be a lot longer if her hair grows like that. Anyhow, small thing. I like pointing stuff like that out because it drives me nuts.
Yeah, they've got some definitely new, interesting characters. There's the shaman who makes his appearance, and it was just funny.
Weird. He's just, you're talking to the guy that...
Yeah, he's weird, but it was interesting because as soon as they showed him, and you all saw him either in the full parka or mask, and you didn't. Right. As soon as you saw his face, I went, "Oh my God, that's Robert Sheehan from the Umbrella Academy." Because I had just finished season 2, which will be another episode. I did.
Oh yeah, I haven't. I'm only 2 episodes in.
I'm not telling you anything. Right. That'll be a whole nother podcast.
In Umbrella Academy, he plays the
cult leader.
The cult leader guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
In this season.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. As soon as you see his face, you're like, "Whoa!
That's what I thought.
I just saw you in that."
And he's almost playing. It's like 2 magical type, believing in magical whatever type characters.
Yeah.
Because in Fortitude also starts off in the first episode of season 2. They almost set up a murder mystery as well because the sheriffs are called out to a scene where a plow truck driver thinks he accidentally killed some dude because after he plows over something, he basically sees there's a body with no head. But then they discover, no, dude, if this dude's head was, cut off pretty clean, your plow wouldn't have done that.
Yep.
So there's this murder, that has to be solved, set up as well. So there's definitely a few different story points going on, and it's definitely worth a watch. You just gotta, I'm just crossing fingers that Prime picks up season 3.
I'll put it this way. I was really kind of cool on it after the first season, although it ended well. And like I said, it was a slow burn to start. Second season, to me, picked up. It was a great storyline. It was fantastic acting. Loved it all the way through. So, was it worth it for me to watch this? Yes, absolutely. And you do have to watch the slow first season because it really does set up, because some of the things that happen in first season do have a bearing on this season. So you've gotta watch it. All in all, if we give it a CGC rating,
go ahead. You go first.
I would say I'd probably do a 7.5 total with the show. Second season really picked up for me, elevated it. It's a very fine minus. I think it's a good watch. I'll be very curious to see the final 4 episodes to see how they finish it off and see if that doesn't affect my score later.
I'd probably go not a full 8, but like a 7-8, because I agree. I think the second season definitely helped out, because the first season, no lie, it's a slow burn, but once it gets moving, it gets moving. And it's worth it if you're a fan of Dennis Quaid. because whenever he does anything, I'm all in. I've always loved him as an actor, and this is a dramatic role, and he's just fantastic.
Yep.
His wife from Game of Thrones is great. I mean, all the cast additions. In the last cast addition I'll mention, I can't remember her name, but she plays a scientist doctor. She's from ER. She was on ER for a while. I can't remember her name. The cast is so...
Yeah, there's a lot. Paraminder Negra. Yeah, she plays Dr. Sandria. Yeah, the one she's got my favorite scene at the very.
She has a great scene. I know what Dennis is talking about. We're not going to spoil it. She kind of comes across, not in the beginning. You know, you get a shady feel with her, and then you do realize that she's not playing on the good side, but she totally redeems herself in the scene Dennis is talking about.
Yep, it's worthwhile, and I mean, I could never remember her name. I remember her from Blacklist, because I was a Blacklist fan.
Yeah, she was on Blacklist.
Yeah, I wasn't a big ER fan, so I didn't know her from that, but I remember her from Blacklist.
Yep.
And I'm like, something tells me she's not a good girl, but yeah, she every cast that they added in second season was great. The cast in general, I don't think they miscast anybody. I thought it was a solid casting for both seasons.
Oh, totally.
Yep.
Sweet. All right. The last one we're going to talk about. I saw a trailer for this a few months ago, and I went to check it on Amazon, and it was a rental for Amazon. So I told Dennis about it, and it's a movie called Arkansas that actually came out on May 5th this year. And the plot is the two main characters are a guy named Kyle and Swin. And Kyle and Swin live by the orders of an Arkansas-based drug kingpin named Frog, whom they've never met. But when a deal goes horribly wrong, the consequences are deadly. So the cast is Liam Hemsworth, so Thor's brother, who plays Kyle, and Clark Duke, who plays Swin. And Clark Duke, to me, is known for the comedic stuff he does.
Right.
You definitely recognize him. He's a typecast type of actor. You would definitely recognize him. Like I said, I remember from comedic roles. John Malkovich is in it. He has a smaller part. He's in it, though. Eden Brolin, who is Josh Brolin's kid, is in it. And then the main attraction for me was Vince Vaughn.
And the moment Andy said it's a Vince Vaughn movie, and I'm like, Vince Vaughn? Arkansas?
Yeah.
I had never heard of it. And I'm like, wow. The moment he said that and John Malkovich, I'm like, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
I've got to see this.
Well, for me, Vince is playing these more dramatic roles as of late. And
yeah, Cell Block 99.
Cell Block 99. Something Concrete he was in with Mel Gibson. I'm blanking on the name, but that was another good movie on Amazon.
Yep. I love him as an actor, and I like the fact that he's not just comedic.
So he plays Frog, the drug kingpin. Now, the other thing I thought that was really cool about this movie is Clark Duke, and I didn't realize it till it was over, directed it and co-wrote it as well. Because the thing, I'll be upfront, it's kind of slow. There's definitely moments where you're kind of like, okay, we could pick the pace up a little. But he breaks it down into chapters. So it'll start with just, the black screen and then the lettering, chapter 1 and the name of the chapter, and chapter 2, the name of the chapter. And I vividly remember, there was one chapter, I think it was chapter 3, Frog. And each chapter obviously tells, the one about Frog basically is Vince Vaughn's origin story, if you will, of how he became this drug lord or drug kingpin in Arkansas. Now, the one thing that I thought was kind of funny, though, I got to admit, is for that chapter with Vince Vaughn's character Frog, it goes back to 1985. But if I remember right, because I didn't see anything that would sway it differently, the movie took place current day.
It did.
So that means we're going back 35 years, right, to 1985. So, I think they did do a little bit of computer magic on Vince Vaughn to make him look younger. But I still had a kind of a thing, because if you do the math, you're going, all right, let's just say he was 25 in 1985.
Yep.
Right? Which he definitely looked older than 25. But let's say that's what they were going for. That would make him 60.
65.
No, 60. 35 and 25.
But your current day. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that would make him 60 today.
Yep.
And he did not look like a 60-year-old in the movie. Now, granted, there are some people in their 60s that you're like, no way, dude, you got to be in your 50s. So
maybe he's like Keanu Reeves. He's ageless.
That's right. He's ageless. So that was, if I had a main beef, it's that continuity guy in me again, it would be that. Because it's just like, honestly, in 1985, if you would have said, how old do you think that dude is? I would have been like, oh, that guy? He looks like he's at least 32, 33, which would put him above, 60 now.
See, I like the format of the movie, like you said, with the chapters. It was really kind of slow about how the boys got involved and how they became involved, and when you compare it to Vince Vaughn's chapter, which was my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, that was the best.
Yep. And you get to see how they both came up in there and how Vince wanted to treat everybody, as a partner. You're going to be a partner in this criminal empire one day, and he tried to treat people that way. And Liam and Clark, their characters really are screw-ups. Well, and they make poor decisions from the beginning, which is almost like a Greek tragedy, the way that they just make one bad decision, which leads to this, which leads to this, but it looks like they're going to get out of it.
It's funny because Clark Duke, you'll know from Hot Tub Time Machine, Kick-Ass 2, Robot Chicken, Veronica Mars, stuff like that. He's more known for comedies, but he plays this. He's from Arkansas. And he just plays this guy that has this unique look. He has long hair, but he pulls it back in like a ponytail. He's got a thin, Weasley-looking mustache. He's just nothing you would look at as anything special. And you would definitely look at him and think, you've got a screw loose. So one of the things I thought was hysterical is he's going through a grocery store and his eye lands on Josh Brolin's daughter, Eden, his character Joanna, and I give the guy credit because I can admit I was never a ladies' man, but man, he just marches up to her in a grocery store and just hits on her with some pretty lame lines, and she blows him off. He follows her out to the parking lot and ends up scoring a date with her. And I'm just like, wow, you're a very attractive girl. Even though this town where you live might not be that big, this dude is the best you can do?
Yep.
It just shows it must be about the personality for dudes, because my standards are a little higher than Clark Duke.
Yeah.
No offense, buddy.
I thought the acting was good. I enjoyed everybody's part. John Malkovich, once again, he and Vince Vaughn, right? And he plays a ranger, which winds up being his ranger character's named Bright. And you find out he's actually the right-hand man of Vince Vaughn, which you don't realize right away. And he tries keeping the boys in check and in line, and he pulls off his lines well. He's an enjoyable character. And
well, that's one thing I was going to say. So when John Malkovich first recruits Liam Hemsworth and Clark Duke, he gives them a little welcome to the job spiel about things you do and things you don't do. And once you see Vince Vaughn's character, Frog, his origin, when Vince Vaughn, and this is probably sometime in the early 90s now, gets his first two guys, his quote-unquote crew, who happen to be twin brothers, or brothers that are twins, whatever, Vince Vaughn tells them the exact same thing. So you can tell that when Vince Vaughn basically brought on John Malkovich's character to work underneath him as the second in command or whatever, he gave him the spiel.
Right.
To tell, you pass this on to whoever.
When you're you're in for life.
Yeah.
And if you're told to do something, you don't argue it. I mean, you
do it.
You just do it. And like I said, it definitely had some interesting moments to it. For me, my wife wound up watching it with me, and she was like, "What in the hell did you make me watch?" She lost interest and never,
did she really?
Never regained it. Absolutely.
How far in?
She lost interest probably within 20 minutes and said, "There's nothing here." She finished watching it and then just shook her head. So this definitely was not a movie for her. I thought the acting was good. The pacing was slow and sporadic at times. The dialogue was fine. There was just nothing uber gripping for me to the storyline. I thought it was okay. Vince Vaughn, I thought was great in his part. He was my favorite part of it. John Malkovich, for the small part he was in it, was solid. The rest of the movie for me kind of fell flat. It was definitely not one of my favorite movies.
It was a movie that if you were looking at like a seismic chart, from say an earthquake or something, and you get those ups and downs, peaks and valleys, and this movie was definitely more along almost a flat line.
Yes.
Which isn't necessarily bad. I mean, there's definitely really good movies out there that are like that pacing-wise.
Yes, it was the Ben Stein monotone kind of movie.
Yeah.
Bueller.
I never got to a point where I thought, oh, when I get into it, I'm going to turn it off. Because that's the other thing. I said it was originally a rental, and what happened was Dennis and I were going to get together and watch it at his place, but I turned on Amazon Prime Saturday night and I saw it, and it switched over to Prime, which means if you're a Prime member, you get it for free. So I texted Dennis and said, dude, it's Prime. We can watch it. I'm watching it now. One of the things I want to discuss actually deals with the ending, and it is a spoiler. So I think this is what we're going to do. We're going to give it our rating, and then if you don't want to hear how it ends, stop listening, because this is how we're going to end the podcast. And if you don't care about hearing how it ends, keep listening. Because I've got to talk to Dennis about this, and I want to talk about it on the podcast for anybody that watched it, just to hear the take and maybe get with us and let us know what you think.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So rating-wise, I'd like to go higher, and I do suggest people watch it. I'm going to break it down into two and then average the two. Actually, two's a shitty average. I'll give it 3 things and average the 3. From the cast standpoint, so the actors that were in the movie, I give it a 10. I mean, you got Liam Hemsworth, Clark Duke, Vince Vaughn, John Malkovich. So Vivica A. Fox is in it. She did a great job. So I'll go 10 for the actors, for the casting. For the acting job they all did, I'll go 8. Because I thought everybody did a phenomenal acting job. As a movie itself, I am just going to go 6. So, going by that, that's 6 plus 8 is 14, plus 10 is 24, divided by 3 is 8. So, breaking it down that way, the movie gets an 8 from me on the average side of things. Doing it that way. Because because I really enjoyed the acting. I really enjoyed the cast. But the movie itself, you're right. Dennis is right. It is kind of slow.
So, you and I are way off on this one.
Oh my God, you can't go lower than a 6.
Yeah, I'm giving it a VG+.
Yeah, what's that number?
So, 5.0.
Oh man, right in the middle.
Yeah.
So it's not in the garbage heap.
4.5 to 5. I mean, that is right where I am in this one. And I was super excited because of the cast. I mean, once I found out who was in it, I was down, and I'm not going to disagree. For me, that is an award-winning movie that I would go see anytime.
And I got to tell you, I don't know if this was Clark Duke's first directing job or major directing job, But if it was, I thought he did a phenomenal job because I liked the storytelling and I liked the chapter breaks.
I liked how he did the chapters. I liked the format that he put the movie in. For me, the movie now, my wife probably would have given it a much lower rating. She had no interest. The characters were flat for her. The story didn't move. It didn't exactly bring anything out. For me, I thought the story was okay. The execution wasn't bad for what the story was. There was just a lot of energy missing. Now, the characters were played by the actors, and I thought they did a good job. I'm not going to disagree with the fact that they didn't act them. I think the script was weak, and I think some of the execution of the script was weak. Love the actors. I would say, for me, if you're bored and you got nothing else to watch, it would be worth a watch. But I wouldn't rush out and watch this. So yeah, I'm at a 5.
All right. So that's our ratings. Like I said, I'm going to spoil the ending. If you don't want to hear it, move on till next week. If you do, awesome. So, in the end, you got the twins, the original twins that, well, played by different actors because it's 20-some plus years later, so they're grown up. That Vince Vaughn originally recruited for his
initial gang,
basically come and kidnap Liam Hemsworth and Clark Duke's character because Liam's character and Clark's character started breaking rules, not listening, and you don't do that. So they basically kidnap him to rub him out, to take him out. So they're in a pretty good sized bathroom. I'm actually trying to remember the location they were at for that. Yeah, I don't remember. So anyhow, they're at some place, they're in this pretty good sized bathroom, and they take, each one of the twins takes, Liam Hemsworth into one of the stalls, and Clark Duke, gets taken to another one, and the twin that takes Clark Duke has a gun.
And only one of the bad guys has a gun.
And only one of the twins has a gun. So that guy has a gun. So now we're focused on the one twin and Liam Hemsworth, and they're talking back and forth, and Liam Hemsworth is basically, he's not showing the guy that he's scared. He's basically saying, I'm getting out of here.
You better kill me now.
You better kill me now because you're done.
Yep.
So this is the what the hell? How could this even happen? Moment in my mind is, so you hear the gunshot go off.
Yep.
So
Clark.
Clark Duke's character's toast because the gunshot goes off. So at that point, Liam's character kicks this other twin that's watching him in the knee, and basically they fight, and Liam gets the upper hand and takes him out. And you can hear all this. This is not a quiet fight.
Yeah, because he puts his fingers in the guy's eyes.
He puts his fingers in the guy, because the guy's trying to choke Liam out on the floor. So the guy's on top of Liam. Liam gets his arms up and basically gouges the guy's eyes out. I mean, there's blood coming out of his eye sockets and everything.
It was graphic.
And it's loud.
Yeah.
So this is my thing. What the fuck is that other twin doing that just shot Clark Duke that he doesn't hear this scuffle going on and Liam's character is able to escape?
But what's interesting is but they never explain it because
that's my point.
You're assuming that it's Clark Duke's character that got shot.
But it is because of what happens after.
Right, but when you first do it, you don't. And Liam Hemsworth winds up, Kyle winds up walking out. And then
and that's just it. He doesn't even run. He walks out. And all I could think is, and Dennis is right, you hear the gunshot when Liam and the other twin are bantering back and forth. So yeah, you don't know for a fact that Clark Duke didn't overpower the guy and shoot him, but you kind of do because Clark Duke's a small guy and these twins are big dudes.
You assume it.
So you pretty much know Clark just got shot, Clark's character. So now there's this scuffle going on of him gouging this dude's eyes out as he's getting choked out. It's in a bathroom. There's lots of noise. It's a violent fight. When the guy's finally taken out, the twin, Liam just strolls out of the bathroom and strolls out of this hotel or wherever it's taking place and gets away. And all I could think is, where the fuck is this other twin? How can he not hear this commotion and hear the basically the yelling back and forth and everything?
Yep.
And get to his brother's aid? Even if look, he hears he's got to hear the commotion. Would he go deaf from a gunshot?
But he was going to come back from the gun, too. He wasn't going to kill him off with his fist. He was waiting for the twin to come back and shoot him.
Right. So what happened? So then you basically cut to Liam shows up at Eden Brolin's house, Joanna, Clark Duke's character's girlfriend, who is pregnant, and Liam shows up. Basically, she knows what happened just by the look on his face, gives her money and says, you need to get out of town.
Yep, leave Arkansas.
Leave Arkansas, change your name, here's some money, get out of here.
And she goes, well, where am I supposed to go? And he goes, well, he's got like 40 sisters because he's part of you're assuming it's a commune or a cult or something like that.
Or a
basically,
holler.
But you're assuming that, and then you go stay with them, they'll take care of you.
So then you cut to Vince Vaughn and the twins. And the one twin is basically in a wheelchair
with his eyes gouged out.
with gauze, not even eye patches, but gauze covering both his eyes because he's blind. And, he's basically an invalid now because he can't see. And then the other twin ends up, this kills me, they had a joint bank account. So the other twin
with Vince Vaughn.
Yeah, Vince Vaughn had a joint bank account with these two twins. So the other twin realizes, I'm not going to hang around and take care of my blind brother and deal with this bullshit. So he basically withdraws everything. And Vince Vaughn finds this out because he goes to the bank. And the bank manager's like, yeah, dude, your account's wiped. You got nothing.
Yep.
So Vince Vaughn goes back to...
This is why you don't trust family.
Right.
Even if they are family.
Yep. So Vince Vaughn goes back to the house where the twins live, and he finds the blind twin dead with a bullet wound to the head.
Yep.
To the forehead, and the other twin's just gone.
Yep.
And Vince is screwed, and then Liam shows up, so they have their standoff.
Right. And then Vince goes, well, I can start up all over again. I'm going to go to Oklahoma City. So he makes a phone call.
He makes a phone call. This is where Liam shows up.
Right. And they're like, and the guy goes, yeah, you don't want Oklahoma City. It's not good. It's not good. No, I think I want Oklahoma. No, you definitely don't want Oklahoma City. And finally he goes, I can do it. Well, I'll get you in touch with the guy, but don't say I didn't warn you. So he's all done. Hey, I've made an empire in Arkansas. I can do this in Oklahoma.
Right.
So that's what Vince is going to do.
Yep. But no, because Liam shows up.
Yep.
And they have their standoff, and we'll just say, like I said, if you're listening, it's because you want to know what happens, where you watched it. Liam shoots him dead and walks out alive.
That was a good scene. It was a silent scene. That was a good
silent scene. That was one of the best directing moments, I thought, in the whole movie.
It was.
Because the way it was shot, no pun intended, you didn't know if he shot him.
Right.
And then the camera pans around.
He held the gun up.
Liam had the gun held up at Vince Vaughn.
And then, but what's interesting is then they had their conversation, and you see him putting the gun down. And you're thinking, oh my God, is he not going to shoot him?
Not going to shoot him.
Dude, that's so stupid. And then they do a slow motion cutscene, still silent, and you see Vince Vaughn going down.
No, you see two bullet holes in his chest.
But it's him going down, and with the two bullet holes that are spraying, so he did get shot.
Yeah.
You just didn't
hear it or see it.
So it was cool. It was a cool
really
ending.
good. So that's it. I mean, that's my major beef, is just like, how the hell in this bathroom where there's all this echoing noise from the fighting and everything, does the twin not hear, oh, I guess my brother's getting into a fight? He can handle himself.
I'll show up later. I know.
Show up later.
I said there were a few things that was a big plot hole, but like I said, I stand with mine.
So Dennis goes a 5. Mine averages out to an 8. Movie itself is just a 6. There you have it, guys. Another week in the bag. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next week. Check us out on Facebook, Dennis and Andy Show.
Yep,
And,
you can type in the DNA Show, Dennis and Andy. We're on iHeartRadio. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud. So a bunch of them, lots of different ways to listen. And if there's anything you guys want us to cover, a new show, comic book, Treasury Edition, whatever, just put it in the comments or shoot us a message.
That's right. We'll always respond. So until next time, take it easy.
See you later.
Until next week, grab your 3D glasses.
Get your favorite comic books, roll them up, and put them in your back pocket the way you should treat comics.
Throw your pigskin up on the mantle. This is Dennis.
This is Andy. Later, friends.